Oh, shalom, shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am delighted and excited to be talking to a Jewish person, ladies and gentlemen, someone who has a podcast. And you know what those things, you're listening to one right now. Let me tell you something. There are two things we know about all Americans during the COVID crisis. One is that we've all spent 2 months sheltering indoors. The other is that 90% of us have podcasts. But how do you distinguish one from the other? I think our person is having also audio issues hearing me. Are we being heard?
I cannot hear you.
You can't hear me? You cannot hear what the hell I'm saying? Hold on. I need to go into the Zoom thing here. No.
Zoom, you have the Zoom window.
It is the Zoom window.
No, that's not. That's Facebook. Oh, it is? Okay.
No, this is the Zoom window.
You do a gallery view.
Gallery view.
You enter this unstable.
I'm anything that's unstable, but what's wrong with my sound? Hold on. God damn it, what's going on here? Hold on, because maybe people are not having trouble hearing. Can you hear me now? Hello, I'm talking. Can you hear me now? Now you talk.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hear me?
You can hear me?
I can through my computer, but not through my headphones, but it's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, put me through your computer. God, I'm like God. I speak through whatever. If I had a burning bush, I talk through that. And then it's unfortunate because one of my daughters has a burning bush and she uses an ointment. But ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to GREG ALPRIN. So he is part of this podcast called the Mangina Dialogues, featuring Nick Scopoletti and the person with us, DJ the Gregalicious. Among the people that they have talked to in recent times are Scaramucci, the mooch, right, from politics, Larry the cable guy, the porn guy, Mr. Skin, and tons of stand-up comedians. He's also, this person has done a lot of work as an associate producer on TV shows and videos. So ladies and gentlemen, won't you please welcome to the neighborhood, the DJ, Gregalicious. Shalom, Greg, how you doing? How's it going?
Shalom, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you too. We have some audio issues. I apologize for this, but we'll do the very best we can. So, main question for everybody right now is, how are you feeling? How is sheltering working out for you?
I spend a lot of time walking the aisles at Walmart.
I know, right? Do you wear gloves and a mask, or just the mask, or nothing?
Occasionally I wear gloves. I'm masked and hand sanitized. Right. Occasionally I have gloves.
Okay. Exciting question. Well, I also apologize because I hear you, but it's very choppy. It's very, I don't know. It's maybe the internet is not so wonderful here, but we're doing the best we can. Anywho, so
yeah, I hear the same thing. I don't know why.
I don't know why either. It's just it's bad internet. Tell us about though this idea of, hey, you like 40 gazillion other people said, we should have a podcast. We should have kind of this is pre-COVID. What gave you the idea of like, hey, once a week, let's get some guests on, let's have some fun, and then put it out there in the world? How did the idea start?
Oh man, it's a long story, but I'll make it short.
Because I get bored easily, but go.
I came up with the name, the Mangina Dialogues, in the shower, and it was too good to just throw away. So I went to one of my friends who's a stand-up comedian, Nick Scopoletti, and said, dude, we need to start a podcast. And it was solely based on the name coming to me in the shower. I previously published a music magazine for many years.
So what was it?
It was called Full Throttle Music. It was in the early to mid 2000s. So, I have extensive experience writing and interviewing and producing stuff. So it just sort of materialized as a silly idea in the shower. And now here we are amidst COVID-19, interviewing people every day.
Oh, so it's a daily thing. It's not even once a week. You do it now.
No, it started out as once a week.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're doing. But for the month of May, since we had so much downtime and people on the other side have so much downtime, we decided to just go for it and interview as many people as we possibly could.
Well, how are you finding?
And we end up amassing a library of way too much content, and the only way to put it out in a timely fashion was to put it out every single day. So that's what we're doing for the month of May, and we'll see what happens in June.
Now, let me ask, where are you finding your guests? Are they people that you knew from doing the music magazine, or press agents and people throwing people at you? Where are you getting your folks, your interviewees?
From everywhere, from tapping into old resources I had through the music world and entertainment world. My main job is actually, I'm in the entertainment business on the merchandise consumer product side. So I work with all the studios and TV companies as a main job. So I tapped resources there. And then we also run a comedy club here in Connecticut. In South Norwalk. So we hire New York City comedians to come out and headline for us. So we just have really endless amounts, luckily, of people who are willing to come on that, are known, and certainly in the comedy world and also the music world.
Well, what are some of the comedians that you've had on the program? So people who not, these are not necessarily all the, except Larry the Cable Guy, household names yet, but who are some of the comedians who are up and coming that you've had?
Well, it depends on what you mean by household names. So yeah, of course, Larry the Cable Guy is a household name.
Right.
But we've had people in the business who have been in the business for 25 years, like Rich Voss, who is very well known in the comedy world, specials all over the place, has been on every radio show that exists. He's been on the show. We had Jackie Martling on the show.
Yes, he's been on this program too.
Stern show for many years and has been a touring comedian. Yeah. Sean Polofsky, who's an LA-based comedian, one of the funniest women in the world, very well known in the comedy world, has been on. We've had Carmen Lynch, who has stand-up Comedy Central specials, Adrian Appalucci, who has a Netflix special. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Are you, I wouldn't say disappointed, but when comedians come on, and your show is humorous, but it's not like they come on and do a set. Are you ever surprised that comedians can be kind of dull?
Correct.
They can be kind of boring when you interview them. You expect them to be hilarious, and they're not.
Truthfully, so far we've amassed close to 100 interviews.
Wow.
And I can only think of 2 that have been not the best, that we had to really drag information out of and pull teeth. I'm not going to name who they are, of course. But if you listen, you'll eventually come to find who they are. But really, it's not hard. We take our show from a position of, we're talking to old friends over a beer or chicken wings in a bar. So we're not looking for someone to come on and do a stand-up set. There's plenty of that out there. Nobody needs that from us. We just like to talk, current events, what's going on in the world, what's led them to stand-up comedy, and just other things that they're doing. Most people have something they're promoting, whether it's an album, a special on Netflix or Comedy Central, or just touring relentlessly across the country. Now of course that's subsided. But really, I've interviewed people for years, so I don't have that much concern about finding interesting stuff to drag out of people. It's like,
yeah. I want to ask about your day job during COVID. You mentioned that you do promotional materials and marketing licensing stuff.
Yeah.
Are you doing your day job still, or are you furloughed, or are you paid but not working?
No, I'm definitely doing my day job. I started the business with another couple of guys back in 2003, and luckily we built a very successful business.
Oh, it's your own business. I didn't realize that was you are the man, no matter what you're working, whether it's the podcast or your day job or the magazine. You're always like,
I have an entrepreneurial spirit.
Oh my God. Are you hiring?
We actually, funny to say that, we, like everybody else, I'm sure, who tried to get a PPP loan, we were successful. Not everybody else, we were successful in getting one. Not being ashamed of it, we had to lay some people off in the early stages of all of this. But once we got our loan, we went back and tried to rehire everybody who we had to lay off, which wasn't a lot of people. We have about a 50 some odd person company. Probably laid off 10% of that. So not a ton, but enough. And a few of those people decided they didn't want to come back. So, these days with the unemployment stuff, it sort of pays people to stay on unemployment, which I could talk about forever. But for now, luckily we are working. We're still very busy. Thank God.
Yes, I do. Thank God all the time. That's what I do. It's half my life here. I don't know why I just crossed my fingers, which is the exact opposite of
my toes and fingers are all crossed.
Hey, by the way,
Everything crossable I have.
Let me break in here. You are you have a Jewy sort of a name, and you've mentioned on the show that you are a Yid. How Jewish are you?
Yep.
Like your background? Were you conservative, reformed? What?
Well, I could answer it this way. My mother, who is Catholic, is the most Jewish person in my household, in my family.
Explain that.
My dad, who was, a Russian Jew, was not in any way religious. I was brought up, I went to temple. I had a bar mitzvah. Both of my sons one of them had a bar mitzvah. The second one is on his way to have a bar mitzvah. But I don't practice any type of religion. I never really have.
But I don't understand. So your dad kind of made the deal with the mom. Look, I want to bring the kids up, have them have the Jewy thing. Do you celebrate Christmas too, or is that not?
Yeah, it gets complicated.
When you were growing up, I mean, yeah.
So I grew up celebrating every holiday, Jewish Catholic holiday. I never went to church. I didn't do any of that stuff. But if there was Christmas, we celebrated Christmas. If there was Passover, we celebrated Passover. And to this day, I still do the same with my mother. I don't my kids don't really celebrate, we don't have Christmas tree or celebrate Christmas on Christmas morning. But out of respect to my mother, of course, we do Christmas with my mom. But we do, Hanukkah and Passover. And my wife's family is pretty religious. They are, her mother is from Brooklyn. She's a Brooklyn Jew. Her father he's deceased, but he was from Libya. So their family is definitely religious, not Orthodox, but, fairly religious, like, you would be coming from a country and coming here. And then her aunt is from Iraq. So we do a tremendous amount of interesting cooking around the holidays.
No, oh, that sounds fabulous. And by the way, you need anybody to teach your children Hebrew. I don't know Hebrew, but I'll be happy to get a book and learn. So just saying.
That's fun because they do best when people don't know things.
Now, let me ask you, in terms of when you decided to do this podcast. By the way, let's also give a shout out to your Nick Scopoletti, the comedian. He is your. You don't do this podcast alone. It's a two-man team, two-person team.
It sure is.
So, when you decided to do it, was just for poops and giggles. You had a little extra time, right? Before the whole COVID thing, you thought you knew these people would be fun to do. But how much does it? Since I'm Jewish, I care about money. What does it cost you to do this, if anything?
Not a whole lot. I bought some good equipment from the get-go, which with this, I'm not sure.
I've shopped at the get-go. It's a good place.
They have good discounts. Not a whole lot, just between what it costs to publish it monthly, which is nominal. And then, we do some promotion, not a ton. Right. We, because we're interviewing people that have, recognizable names in the business that we're in, we trade off of that to, really get our listeners and following. We spend some money on promotion. We have a sponsor that provides stuff for us. We've done some live theater shows in the past. We've brought on sponsors to help with the cost of doing that. But, overall, I don't suspect we'll be able to truly monetize for, 6 months to a year. We need to get to certain plateaus, which we're not yet at.
So monetizing would mean what? Would you go on iTunes? I mean, what would the money go towards?
Just more advertising. Monetize. I don't expect this would ever, in any short term, provide an income you could count on, but to be able to get paid some money to do some advertising, to then in turn take that money and advertise more ourselves, I see that coming much sooner than being able to support myself podcasting.
Oh no, I can't. I don't know how Mark Maron did it. It's like, oh, we all want to be Mark Maron. There's only one fucking Mark Maron, and he figured it out. Somehow it worked for him. Everybody else, let me do a show. It'll be entertaining, and then I'll make money for the rest of my life and do comedy. But it doesn't work. Yeah.
Joe Rogan, they say, makes $100 million a year from his podcast.
Wait, what?
Joe Rogan.
Just from the podcast? Not.
I mean, again, I'm not his accountant, so I don't know, but that's what I've read. That's what people talk about. Even if it's 40 million, it's a lot of money.
Even if it's 40 grand, I'll take it. Good Lord. I mean, it's just, getting on with an MP3 and there you are.
Yeah. People used to make fun of it. Now it's definitely it's where the business is. People don't listen to radio anymore unless you have satellite in your car. Everybody listens to podcasts. My kids who are teenagers listen to podcasts. All the people that work for me listen to podcasts. I mean, that's where the entertainment has gone that used to be on the radio. So it's very monetizable, if that's a word. It's just, there's so much content out there, you have to separate yourself.
Well, let me ask you, the choice again to do this I mean, we're Zooming. I see you, you see me. We hear each other even though we're having some audio issues, but your podcast is an audio thing. Was there a decision made not to make it a video show?
Because most people don't really watch the content besides 30-second clips on social media, there really was no need to take it to video, right? And video is a much different game. Now with Zoom you can certainly do this, but the quality is what the quality is. To really produce good quality, and I don't like really doing something like halfway. If I was going to do it, I want to do it. And to do it with good video content, you have to have, that's where an investment comes into play. You'd have to invest thousands of dollars to create good video, and then release it as a video podcast. But then again, people are still listening to it on audio. They're not sitting at home watching the podcast in its entirety.
Good. Well, but people, you seem to be something of a gym rat, as it were, if you'll pardon the expression. So people on their exercycles, they can watch as well as listen. But I don't know. It's hard to tell.
You cut out.
Oh, you didn't hear me?
No, you cut out. Something about the gym.
Well, I'm saying you seem to be also a kind of a exercisey, Jimmy person. I'm saying people you say people want to hear things rather than see them, but in short bits, people can be on an exercycle looking at the cast rather than just hearing it. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't see that much of that at the gym, to be honest. I see, people have their phones in their pocket or up on the thing, and they're just listening to stuff or watching whatever is on the monitor while they're on the treadmill. It is something we're thinking about. We just published our first video podcast on YouTube. All of our content's on YouTube also. But, it's only based out of this Zoom thing where one day when we were recording a pod, we just recorded like this. And since we had the video, I was like, instead of putting out the audio, put out the video. It hasn't really seemed to make that much of a difference. It's still the audio.
It's the way. And as you say, if you're in a car, you should not be watching. You should be just hearing the audio. Let me ask you, we talked a little bit about your publishing a music magazine back in the day. You also, your name, if you go on IMDb, we see some credits for you as an associate producer on things like movies or TV. Or what were some of your positions doing that in media before doing this?
Well, I still do that. So a lot of the stuff that's up there are just small investments I made into some projects as a passive investor. Right. Absolutely no role in many of those projects besides just throwing some money at them to help them get them out there in the world. Through writing my music magazine for many years, I developed a writing style and started writing screenplays with a partner, also different than Nick. And, we reached some level of success. We haven't yet had one of them made. We have made money on them. So there's two different things.
By
actually seeing it on the screen.
Or what?
People paid us.
Yeah.
Yeah, people paid us for either something we wrote or to write something for them. And then for a bunch of years, I was consulting at a different company, really helping a friend. And they were an entertainment marketing business, and through that I met a lot of different people that had good stories to tell, and I would partner them with a production company to develop docuseries around them. So I created probably 10, 12, 15 docuseries that we ultimately shot pilots for, and different talent agencies shopped them around. And again, had some, I consider it successful. I invested no money and made 12 pilots.
All right. Well, hey, that's half of Hollywood is connecting one person with another person.
Yeah, that's
how things get done.
That's how it gets done.
What would you say, not about the check that they wrote you, but in terms of the most views or the most notoriety or the most seen, is the most successful project that you had your fingers in?
Oh, the podcast for sure.
Oh, like I mean, more than any of the short films or things
Oh
like
yeah, hands down, the podcast, no question. I mean, I never, when we started this podcast last July, we were interviewing local Connecticut comedians that are either our friends or people that do shows for us in our clubs. We started open mic nights here in Connecticut. Also, we've produced over 100 shows since May of last year, and we were just having our friends on and just shooting the breeze. And then
I might just shot the breeze right there. Yeah.
yeah, and then once we hit a couple of lucky breaks with getting guests that were far better than our podcast was, it just started snowballing into where we are now. And I never would have guessed 6 months ago that I'd have Larry the Cable Guy on my podcast, right? Or we interviewed Anthony Scaramucci. I mean, these are some of the most well-known people in the world.
How on earth did you get to the mooch? And I was having contact.
It's just asking questions and getting to the right people. It's one person puts you in touch with another person who puts you in touch with another person, and then you wind up getting to the person. And that's how I got to Anthony, and he was nice enough to agree. He listened to the podcast, thought it was very funny, and agreed to come on, and we had a great time.
Let me ask you, I know you don't want to say like the two comedians who were the most boring and worst, quote unquote, guests, but it's okay to say who are one or two of your absolute favorite guests in terms of that was the best hour of podcasting that we've done.
Oh, definitely Scaramucci, definitely Anthony. I mean, hands down that, because one, it's so far out of the box of what Anthony comes on and it's just a completely different thing. Still very funny, but, we talked about the world, and his experience working in the White House for, one of the most unique people in the world. Good, bad, and different. Perspective is probably very close to the same.
Yeah. Let me ask you right there then. To whet people's appetite so that they go and find the Scaramucci interview, the podcast that you did at the manginadialogues.com, the manginadialogues.com. But what's something that he told you about the President of the United States that was surprising or revelatory? Anything?
Nothing surprising about him that you wouldn't know being alive in the world, the last 30 years. What was most interesting to me was why he took that job, right? Which, again, you could probably guess it's very ego-driven, right? But Anthony is a very well respected, established person in the world of finance. To risk it all, and go work for the type of person that the President of the United States is a bold move, right? And I was most intrigued as to why he did that. And if you want the answer, you'll have to listen.
That's good. At the manginadialogues.com. How much, since in the early stages, a lot of your guests were friends and people you knew and people you knew from the comedy club, but now as you expand your range of people that you're talking to, how much research do you and Nick have? We don't really talk enough about him. He's half of your team, but how much research do you do before you sit down with a guest? How many questions do you write out? How much Wikipediaing or their websites do you look at to be comfortable with an hour's worth of conversation?
We try to keep our shows to about half an hour. We've done, you can look at all the stats given to you by Spotify and iTunes and everywhere, and they'll show you when your guests start to drop off. And we found that 30 minutes is our mark, right? So we try to keep everything to 30 minutes. I do a lot relative to a 30-minute show. Nick does some, he does enough, to be comfortable. I'd probably do too much, because I have 10 years experience of interviewing people, and you never know what you're going to get, right? So someone may come on and you might have 20 questions lined up, and out of the gate, they may babble on for any of them. So I like to be prepared for that. I think over preparation, you can't go wrong with over preparing.
Well, but here's the deal. How do you do all the things where do you find the time to have the podcast, prepare for a good interview, and I mean, not talking about COVID times and normal times, and have your day job, which you run, right? And all the other stuff that you're into. When do you sleep?
I don't. I really don't. I live in Southern Connecticut, so I leave my house very early in the morning. I'm in my office by 7 a.m. typically, maybe later. I'm a little earlier in Manhattan, and I leave early, so I can beat the traffic home. So I have most of the evening and late afternoons to hang with my family and do whatever I want to do, go to the gym, whatever. So I have time. I spend a lot of time on the road on airplanes, or did. So I have tons of time in the air commuting back and forth to Los Angeles or wherever I may be going. So I have plenty of downtime to do some of these simple things. Typically we would record, we would publish one show a week. So, we're recording once or twice a week, trying to build a little bit of a library, but it's not that time consuming for the podcast. I can promote the podcast while I'm on a plane, that stuff is relatively simple.
Now, let me ask you, you're just building this podcast and you have your company that's been around for a while. 20 years from now, what do you hope for? What do you see yourself still doing this? Are you the entrepreneur type who might get bored with this after 5 years and then go to a completely different thing to do?
It's interesting because I'm not that young that I can make a million different switches. My main job, I am, hopefully going to continue that for a long time, unless somebody comes in and wants to sweep us off our feet and take us out of our
I apologize to our listeners. We're having some audio difficulties again with the podcast. So you're breaking up and we missed just what you were saying there. Please say that again.
Oh, where'd you lose me?
Just like 10 seconds ago.
Oh, I was just saying that, I'd love to be able to do the podcast for a long time. It's fun, keeps my mind and creative juices and flowing. And, I love the part of the podcast where I connect with people, and then turn those guests into friends. Most of them I still communicate with on a regular basis. And for Nick, who's a comedian, it's all great for him to continue these relationships where, we interview someone and then he can build on that to possibly help him down the road in his stand-up career. 20 years, I probably hope I'm doing nothing besides chilling.
Well, how old? You look like late 40s, maybe early 50s. How old are you?
You're actually one of the only people that's ever nailed my exact age. I am in my upper 40s.
All right. Hey, I'm pretty good at this. Trust me. Are you wearing the hat because you got the head like I do, or do you actually have still hair?
Oh, no. I have plenty of hair. I dyed it blue.
Why? Yeah, I see that. Well, you have fantastic hair. I'm incredibly envious, but what the hell?
Yeah.
Hair
is something I have.
Someone hashtag like blue hair challenge.com sort of thing, and this is why you did this, or what?
No, I've been locked in a house for 2 months. I mean, what else am I going to do?
Well, let me ask you before we let you go, and by the way, we've been talking to GREG ALPRIN. See, we're going to let you go after just about half an hour, because that's the time when
Smart.
Tired of both of us. But what have been your most enjoyable things to watch on not just your own podcast, but of other people, like if you Hulu or Netflix? Or what have you enjoyed over the past 2 months with your family or alone?
Oh, wow. I don't watch that much television. I watch a lot of news, financial news. I stopped watching CNN and MSNBC and stuff, more so because it intrigues me. I'm by no means a savvy investor. But I watched Tiger King. I mean, how could you not?
Of course, yeah.
I watched Ozark. I watched I watched the show Dave that's on Hulu. It's hysterical if you're into dirty rappers. And I watched.
I had a candy bar yesterday. The rapper was filthy, but yeah.
High Fidelity, which was a take on the movie from the early 2000s, I think,
I
or
remember,
90s.
well, no, the movie is older than, but I remember that movie, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a TV show now. They made a TV show, similar concept, possibly the best TV show I've seen in a long, long, long time. Really great show.
Where's that watchable? High Fidelity on
Hulu?
what? Hulu.
On Hulu.
And of course, be honest, how much time did you spend researching Mr. Skin?
Well, I've been listening to Howard Stern since 1985. So I didn't need to do any research on that.
No.
To be honest.
Didn't have to tell
But I think you're getting at how much time did I spend on his website. Through the years, of course, I've, like I'm sure anyone that listens to Howard Stern has gone to that website just to throw in a actress's name. And what is amazing to me about that guy is not that he built a business out of very short clips of nudity in media. That's secondary. It's the guy has, you can name any actress, and I tested him off the air. And I just threw some names out, and he, without even thinking about it, will tell you what movie they were in, when they might have been some level of skin, and what year that was, or if they've never done it. It's amazing. He is a savant.
I want to ask about Lainey Kazan, Beatrice Arthur, Molly Pecan, if she ever showed some boob. These are people that I definitely want to see, let me tell you.
He will nail it for you. I tried. I forgot who I asked him. B. Arthur would have been a good one, but that's probably easy because he probably gets that a lot. I forgot who I asked him, thinking I would stump him, and he nailed it. And then I had to go test it, and he was right. It's unbelievable.
The question I would have asked is also how he, we know how he makes a career because people subscribe and they pay money to use the website, but does he have royalty things? Doesn't he have to pay all these movie studios and video release companies to use the footage? Because you can't post things on YouTube without giving permission and all these things. What?
That's a very good question and something I didn't think about. And that is actually the heart of my business. So I probably should have thought about the royalty angle of what he's doing. I didn't even cross my mind. Maybe I'll email him and I'll ask him and I'll let you know what he says.
I would be really curious because how do you if you can't use a 4-second piece of music in a rap song without giving Columbia Records $20, how does he get to show, Angelina Jolie pulling her boobies out and just show it? Or is he,
I don't know. I imagine he does have royalty, some type of agreements with the studios to do it, because you're right, he couldn't do it otherwise.
I just wonder about it. But anyway, I hope we don't get him into trouble. And then suddenly someone from the government says, "Oh, you've been doing this illegally. You owe us $20 billion, and we're shutting you down."
Well, 20 years in, I'm pretty sure they know who he is.
They won't admit it, but they'll. Anyway, I admit that it has been delightful talking to GREG ALPRIN, who is part of the two-man. Give a shout out to Nick Scopoletti, by the way. Tell us just a little bit about this guy and what he brings to the show.
Oh, he brings a countless amount of family-based humor, not family-friendly humor, but humor based on his family. He's a very funny guy. He's only been doing stand-up for 2 years. It's the only reason I'm even involved in this stuff is because I stumbled upon him and built a friendship with him, realized he was really onto something with his comedy. So I have nothing but good things to say about him, his vision for his comedy, the way he presents it. He's a very funny guy. You can follow him on Instagram at Nick Scopes.
Like Scope, like the mouthwash, SCOPES, Nick Scope.
Nick Scopes
on Instagram. And of course, you can hear Nick Scopes and our friend DJ the Gregalicious on the podcast together, the Mangina Dialogues. Coming this on YouTube too, but the place to go would be that website. Yes,
it's you can go to our website. It's on every podcast platform you can imagine: iTunes, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Podbean, and I'm sure a million others.
Wow!
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
You should live to 120 and have 120 more platforms for your podcast, Mangina Dialogues. I wish you and your family actually good health. And being safe and good during these times, much more success in all your endeavors, and years of wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having this interview. It's very fun. I appreciate it.
Likewise.
And have a great rest of your Saturday.
Shalom and good Shabbos to you. Bye-bye now.
Exactly. Shalom and good Shabbos to you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Shalom. All right. Okay.
Bye.
I need you, I think, to log out, or do I log you out, or what do I do here? I don't even know. Oh, bye-bye. He's gone. Shalom, my friends. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon